Yeah, hello and hello again. We are live. Hello, 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 and hello again, everyone. Thank you for always being here, joining to talk together about life issues. Thank you for always sharing the videos, for always liking, commenting, and subscribing. Thank you very, 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 very much. I can't thank you enough. Thank you. Today, we've got a lovely guest. We haven't seen actually for decades. One of my vegicola girls again, because most people are saying, "Oh, what's vegicola? What's vegicola? Is it about vegetables?" They are my clique. They are my ladies. We went to school together, to secondary school, and that is Federal Government Girls College, Akure. You cannot find any vegicola girl who would not be um, making waves wherever they are in their different sphere of life. So I am so grateful, so glad to have someone. She was in greenhouse, I was in red house, and we were in the same year. 92 sets of FGGC Akure. Now I will introduce on the screen, bring to you on the screen. Before I actually say that, I need to say what the topic is. The topic today is dealing with miscarriage. Dealing with miscarriage. Why are we doing this topic? The reason is there's so many people who are suffering in silence. There's so many people who feel they are being witch hunted. There's so many who haven't had anyone who has gone through it before, and they need counsel. They need more information about these things. And there is someone who's been through it, who is ready to share her heart with us. I am so glad she's made herself available. Her name is Mrs. Toby Olutobi Edun. You are welcome on the screen.
Thank you very much for that lovely introduction. Thank you, Bumi. It's nice to see you.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Nice to see you with smiles. Now, could you please introduce yourself properly and tell us your journey so far? Thank you.
Okay, my name is Toby Edun. I was known, well, in my particular days, everybody calls me Toby Ayede, Toby Ayede. That was my maiden name is Ayede, but nobody would ever call me Toby alone. Everybody calls Toby Ayede, Toby Ayede. I'm married. I've been married now for 17 years to Mr. Edun, Akinola Edun, and we've got 3 children now. Having those 3 children has been a journey. I've got twin girls. They're 12. They're going to be 13 in November, and I've got a son who is 11 years old. And it's been a journey. Married for 17, as you know, children are just 12, so definitely there's a gap in there, and that's where my story is. Um, do you want me to start now?
Oh, actually, thank you for introducing that. Thank you because you've been through a journey. You've been through a journey, and that is what has actually brought this broadcast, so people can learn. We all learn from ourselves. We are all humans that we've experienced things in different ways, and your story can help someone else. Someone might be going through things right now. They just need to hear you, inspire them, minister to them, and give them hope. And that is why we're doing this. Thank you very much for taking time out. Thank you.
You're welcome, Bumi.
So we'll go
So
right into the question: what is miscarriage, and who can it happen to?
well, reading miscarriage is when you have the fetus that is being expulsion of the fetus which is unplanned from the womb, and before it's able to survive independently. It is the loss of pregnancy before the 20th week. About 10 to 20% of people have gone through this miscarriage in their journeys of life, but the actual numbers are definitely higher than that because a lot of people they miscarry so early in their pregnancies that they don't even know that they are actually miscarrying and they think it's probably just their period. So we have a lot of people that have actually gone through this. So miscarriage is an unplanned expulsion of the baby from the mother's womb.
Okay, okay. Oh, thank you. But who can it happen to? Can it happen to men? I don't know. You tell us.
It happens to women and it can happen at any time. There is no set time that, and it's, some people think that maybe it's because of them. It could happen so early, it can happen late in pregnancy. It doesn't matter. It's not because of you, it's not because you can do everything correct while you're pregnant and you can still miscarry.
True. Thank you. Thank you very much for shedding light on that. So you have a story to tell us. Please, could you tell us your story?
Okay.
Thank you.
Um, thank you. I got married, as I said, about 17 years ago, almost 18 years now. And initially, we decided that, okay, we will wait for a little while before we start dealing with pregnancy. But not long after that, in the same year I got married, we started talking about trying to get pregnant. And we started in my first year of marriage, which was in 2004. And we carried on, and then nothing happened. And we started praying. I started looking at things. It's not that I looked at myself that, well, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I haven't done anything wrong in my life. So why am I not getting pregnant? We went through to the doctors, my husband and I. He was very supportive. We both went to the doctors, checked ourselves. Everything was okay with both of us. And about 3 years or 4 years about 3 years down the line, um, suddenly the doctor told me that my tubes were blocked. Initially, when they've been checking everything had been fine. And then suddenly I was told they tried to pass some dyes through my tubes and everything, and said nothing was happening. So definitely my tubes were being blocked. And the doctor came out and said to me there was no way I could get pregnant by myself. I started crying. I didn't know what to do. I was praying and crying. I called my mom and I said to her, Mom, you just have to pray for me because I don't know what next to do. My husband and I just sat there and thinking that what should be the next step. So the doctor now had another conversation with me later on and said that we could bypass this. Since it's your tube that is blocked, it doesn't mean that you can't get pregnant, that you can go through treatments, and there are treatments out there that could help in this journey with you and your husband, and that if I'm willing to go for it, that we could try. So we prayed about it and stuff, and my husband decided to go on that journey to have a treatment. So we started going through this journey of treatment, which I would say sometimes is trying, but we thank God. When we started the journey of the treatment, that's the IVF treatment, um, the first time we were trying the treatment, I couldn't. The medication was too much for me, so we had to stop. And then we tried the second time, and the second time we went again on the treatment, I got pregnant, and we thank God for that. We were very happy. But during the pregnancy, I was going through so much discomfort. I was in pain. I wasn't feeling too well. And I didn't know who to discuss with except my husband. I tried going to the doctors, they couldn't really find anything or say anything. And we didn't tell anybody that I was pregnant because we wanted it to be a surprise by the
Mm,
time we tell people. So we decided that we would announce the pregnancy to our parents, to our families, as a New Year present on the 1st of January
mm.
2007, no, 2008. This was all the while that we've been trying. So we've been married since 2004, and this is now towards the end of 2007. So when I was 12 weeks pregnant, I was at home, and then suddenly I started bleeding. And my husband was at work. I called him and he said, call the ambulance. So I called the ambulance, and they came to pick me up at home, and they took me to the hospital. It took me a while to see a doctor. And when I did see the doctor, they checked me, and he said, well, he can't really do anything, and he doesn't really know that if it is. And he said, he suggested that maybe if it's a miscarriage you're going through, that there's nothing they can do about it, that I just have to wait and see what happens. And I remember on that day I was crying and asking him that, okay, if it's a miscarriage, is there nothing the doctors can do to help to prevent this? That it's been a journey for my husband and I, and whatever it is that they could do to prevent me from having a miscarriage, that they should do it to me. And the doctor said there's nothing they could do, which was very heartbreaking. And they sent me back home. So that was at 12 weeks. And 13 weeks, 14 weeks, I was fine. I was still pregnant with the baby. And when on my on when it was 16 weeks, that's now 4 months of being pregnant. I remember this was December. It was Christmas Day first. Somebody invited me to have a Christmas get together in their house, which I didn't want to go. It was someone from the new church I started going to. And when she invited me, she kept on calling and everything. I didn't want to tell her that I was pregnant, I was in pain, and I kept on fending her off. But eventually she got through to me. So she said, please come, that it's just going to be you and your husband, and it's going to be the pastor and his family that will be in their house. So I went on that day. After the pastors left, it was after then that she discovered that I was actually pregnant. And she was like, you didn't tell me. I said, well, I don't want to tell anyone. So the reason why I'm talking about this particular day, because this lady had an impact in my life on that day, and me meeting the pastor on that day also helped me. So come 31st of December, as I said, we wanted to tell everybody on the 1st of January that I was pregnant. So come 31st of December, I started having pains, and my husband said, oh, that maybe it was in my head or something. So he held me that night. I fell asleep. And then about past 2 in the morning, I woke up with this same pain. I went to the toilet and I saw myself bleeding again. And then I said to him that I'm trying to use the toilet, but there's something blocking me from using the toilet. I'm not able to pass urine properly. And he was like, what's going on? I said, well, I don't know. So we decided to go to the hospital in the middle of the night. On getting to the hospital, that was when we found out that actually that one I was pregnant with twins then. And that was when they found out that the one of the fetus was actually coming out. And that was why I couldn't wee properly. And the it wasn't just the baby was still in the sack. So it was actually the sack that was coming out of me, and it was already in between my cervix, and it was blocking me from using the toilet. And when the doctors opened me and everything, they were checking. It was very gruesome, I would say. And I'm sorry to share this, but I just needed to share my story. I'm sorry to anybody that might find this a bit squeamish or something. On this particular day, the doctor now tried to pull the sac out of me in A&E, and on trying to do that, he broke the baby's hand or leg. I can't remember which one now. And he couldn't pull the whole sac out, so it was stuck in between. So you can imagine what I must have been through on that day. So eventually, they had to admit me into the hospital. And I went through so many things, medication and everything, and they said they had to, I have to birth that particular baby. The baby was still alive in the sac. So they gave me some medication. I birthed the first baby. And fortunately, I had two different sacs. The babies were not in the same. So we're hoping that probably the second baby would retain in my womb and we could keep the pregnancy. While I was going through this, the reason why I said I spoke about the lady on Christmas Day, I didn't know when I was going through this in the middle of the night that my husband and I had to go to the hospital. I didn't know who else to call because, as I said, we hadn't told anybody in the family that I was pregnant. So I called this particular lady that went to her house on Christmas Day, and she said to me, "Do you want me to call the pastor?" And I said, "Yes, please, because I don't know what to do." So she called the pastor of my church, of the church I was going to then, and the pastor and his wife, they came to the hospital that morning and they tried to speak to the doctors to see what they could do to help at least the second fetus to be able to stay in my womb. And the doctor said they could do nothing. By this time, I had birthed the first baby, and the doctors were explaining to him and to myself that my membranes were already ruptured, and there's no way the second baby will stay. I'm going to go into labor, and I'm going to have to birth the second baby. It was heartbreaking for myself and my husband. At this time, my husband was studying his master's degree at the university. He was doing his exams, and this was me now in the hospital. So you can imagine this is now New Year's Day and me having to go through all that. And eventually I had to call my parents to tell them what was happening on New Year's Day. Instead of me telling them I was pregnant, I had to tell them I was miscarrying. Um, it was a very trying time for myself and my family.
Mm.
Now, going through that, I was in the hospital. I bled so much trying to birth the second baby. I I eventually, while I was birthing that second baby, I lost so much blood, as I said, that I collapsed. My husband was so scared and he was just shouting, and the doctors were trying to revive me, and they were just saying I was losing too much blood. But I thank God this is me here talking today. I'm still alive and I'm here. I'm still a mother, and I give God the glory. I was able to um, come out of that time. Um, and while I was in the hospital, they gave me so much blood. After I birthed that second baby, they took the baby away and they went to dress up the baby and they brought the baby back to me. I couldn't believe it. You will not believe how a baby looks at 16 weeks. It was
Mm.
almost like a real baby. It was all formed. I can't tell really now if it was a boy or a girl.
Mm.
The baby was completely formed. They dressed up the baby, brought the baby in a baby basket to me, and the nurses asked if I wanted to name the baby.
Mm.
And I started crying again. I said,
Mm.
how would I name a baby that is dead? That is a baby that is alive, that I would like to give a name, not a baby that is dead.
Mm.
And I said to them, I can't do it. And they asked me what I wanted to do with the baby, if I wanted to cremate the baby or if I wanted to have a proper burial for the baby. And I was like, I haven't even thought this far. I'm
Mm.
going through so much trauma at the moment,
Mm.
and you're asking me this question for a baby that is dead.
Mm.
And eventually, I told them to take the baby away. And they said to me that what we're going to do, we're going to send the baby's placenta to Great Ormonds Hospital, and they're going to find out why I miscarried at that certain time.
Mm.
To today, I never heard about what happened, but after that moment, I was in hospital for a whole week. I came back home. It wasn't an easy journey for my husband and I. My husband had to be studying on the floor in the hospital while he was sleeping with me there for his exams. And I thank God he passed those exams. I really give God the glory that he didn't have to repeat an extra year or a semester because of all that went through. Um, After I left the hospital and came home, I took some time off work. And at this time, while I was at home, the lady I said that I properly met on Christmas Day that invited me to her house, she came round to come and see me. And she didn't want me to be alone at home because my husband had to go to work and to the uni. So on that certain day, she took me to another lady's house, and she said, that she knows a lady that has gone through um, some kind of death of a baby, that maybe she could talk to me. So she took me to this lady's house. And when I got there, the lady hugged me and she said something to me, which a lot of people don't do. Um, when you miscarry or things go on in your life, people will tell you, take heart, don't cry, God will do it, things like that. This lady, she's a Christian. She said to me, do you want to cry? Please start crying. And you won't believe it. I started crying. I cried so much on this day, and she just sat there and watched me until I could cry no more. And when I had finished, she asked me if I was done. And I said to her, yes, I'm done crying now. And she started her story. And she said to me that her first baby, when she got pregnant, that she had her first baby. And as soon as she had her first baby, she went into coma. And when she came out of the coma, she asked about her baby, and they told her her baby was dead. And she couldn't fathom this. She was thinking that this is me that had a baby. The baby was fine. I had a good pregnancy. I delivered perfectly. The baby cried. Everything was perfect with the baby. And it was after that I went into coma. And me coming out of coma, you're telling me that my baby is dead. That how could that possibly be? This lady almost broke down. She almost went mad. And she went home. Her husband was there for her as well. Her husband couldn't really mourn the baby because her husband was being strong for her. He couldn't show his emotions. And one day the husband came back from work and she saw baby clothes drying out, being washed and being dried outside. And he just thought to himself that, oh my God, my wife has finally gone mad now. That there's no baby, but she's washing baby's clothes and she's spreading them out. And that was when he broke down. But she said something to me. We came out of this and I prayed to God and I said to God that this certain day that this thing happened to me, let it be a day I will never remember again in my life. And the moment that lady said that, I took it as mine as well. And immediately I said, the day that this thing happened is a day, of course, that you can never forget. It's New Year's Eve. But I prayed and I said to God I pray that God, please don't let me remember this event that has happened in my life on New Year's Day of 2008. Help me to forget it. And you will not believe it. God has been awesome. Even, I'll just fast forward that, even when till date, maybe before that certain day, I would probably remember it to come back to my mind that, oh, this was when I miscarried and everything. And on that particular day, on New Year's Eve, New Year Day, I would suddenly forget. And then after then, I will now remember, oh, this happened to me on this certain day. And how come I didn't remember? Well, it was that prayer, and God honored it for me. And I would say that God has been faithful. After that whole journey, it was a trying time, as I said, for myself and my husband. My husband was very supportive. All he cared about was me getting better and me being well. And he kept on telling me that I shouldn't worry, that, marriage is not only about having children. but
Sure.
it's also about being married to someone you love
Hmm.
and sticking with that person till eternity.
Sure.
That is so key to a marriage that is able to survive the ups and the downs and the trials that you never planned for, that
Hmm.
life would throw at you.
Yeah.
Those things you never knew that could happen to you.
Hmm.
And I don't know if you want to add something at this moment before I
Yeah.
carry on.
Yes. Yes. It's so. I had to put a, was it a disclaimer or a comment saying sorry to anyone listening and it sounds traumatic or maybe it brings memories to some people, because it is truly a traumatic experience no one would ever want to experience. You said it so well that it's, I could imagine. I was just painting the graphics in my head about what you said. So thank you very much for sharing your heartfelt story with us. It's such a privilege to listen to you. And you mentioned some things about, or even during the process of miscarriage, doctors can't help.
Yeah,
It's more like you have to wait and see what happens.
yes,
So I feel like it's a helpless situation that nobody knows, and it can happen to anyone. So it's something I've learned from there, that there's no like, oh, let's give you an injection and then it will solve. No, you can only do something before it happens or
yeah,
after it's happened.
yeah,
So yeah, thank you for letting us know. You said you had a friendship group, so building, I was just writing there that building a social friendly group of people around you. Nobody's alone now. We can't, in situations of life, we need people's hands to hold on to. We need people, we need ourselves. So building a social group around yourself is a very important step anyone needs to take. So I don't believe in being a hermit or mind your own business kind of society. No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. That's what causes all these mental issues people have. And you also said something about naming a dead baby.
yeah.
Is that a cultural difference? I don't know if anyone listening, if you're here listening and you're wondering, how could someone tell another person to name a dead baby when you're still trying to absorb the shock, you're not even sure what's happening to you, and you're being told to name a baby? Is it a cultural difference? Is it something that's done in the Western world, or is it, I don't know if it's done in Africa or other parts of the continent, Europe, Asia? Is that something people experience? Please send your comment down below and let us know if you've experienced something like this. How did it go for you? How did you overcome that situation? So please remember to like and share and comment down below so we can learn from ourselves, because everyone has got different experiences. Thank you very much for telling us about this. Now I have a question. Do men also get affected by miscarriage in the home? I know you've said of how your husband was so supportive, and without him, you'd have gone downhill. But he was very supportive, and I thank you, Mr. Edun, if you're listening, Doctor Edun. I don't know what title to put. Thank you very much for being so supportive to my sister. Oh, I have no words to qualify what you've just done, standing by your mate and your spouse in this situation, because so many people are left alone. There are so many people. How about people? I just wonder, people who are single moms, or people who are, who experience this, or maybe their husbands are far away from them. How do they cope? If you've been through it, viewers, please send us a comment. Let's learn from how you coped with yours. Now, do men also get affected by miscarriage in homes?
Well, I'm trying to get the camera back. Um, am I back in?
Yes, you are back in.
Okay, sorry. Um, well, I would say that definitely it's something that is painful. Nobody enjoys having to go through that, especially when you've not had any babies before. If you wanted to have children and you've never had children before, and that was your first taste of it, nobody loves that. I had this same chat with my husband, and I said to him, "How did you feel at that time?" when I was going through this. And he said to me, I was fine. He said to me, my whole concern was just about you. That in this day and age, that we should not be selfish, that it's the woman's fault or anything, that we all we need to do is be there for them when they're going through all these problems that I was going through at that time, because it's also part of it. I'm not alone, but he also has to be strong there for me. But this is not just being strong and killing his own emotions. He felt he did not feel happy that had happened, but he said to me that I felt it wasn't the end of the world, that there was still hope for us. And not only hope in us having babies, but hope in us being together and staying strong together, that we can win this battle if we are in it together. And that made me so happy, because I kept on digging. I said, didn't you feel really terrible? And so he said to me, no, that all I was just thinking is how you're going to get through this and how you're going to be okay after all the things that you had been through. And I really thank God that he's really encouraged me in so many ways. And during this time, I have so many stories to tell, and if I'm given another opportunity, I will come back here to tell the rest of my stories, or anything that I could share in the little time I have here. I will still share it. But
Yeah.
we have been through a journey together,
Mm.
and he has been my defense, I would say.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Wow. I'm sure if our viewers listening now and afterwards, if after this live broadcast, if you have any questions and if we have so many questions actually after this broadcast, and people are like, oh, how did this, or what is this, and all of that, we can actually come back to do another session. So it all depends on you viewers. If you want us to bring back Mrs. Edun, if you've got so many questions, you've always looked for someone to ask, but you've never had the chance to, or you've never, there's someone going through it and they've got a question, but you don't know how to answer them. Here is someone who has gone through it and will be able to answer them. So thank you very much again. I have one more question. What are the misconceptions about miscarriage? What is it? Is it societal misconception, or what are the misconceptions?
Well, some people sometimes think it's your fault, that maybe you didn't do something right. I remember someone telling me then that I should stop working when I became pregnant, that this is you that have been trying to have babies for quite a while. And now that you've got this job, just resign from the job and just stay at home. So some people think that it's something that you had done wrong. It's not that my job was so at that time, it wasn't rigorous or anything. I had to journey really to work. Maybe some of the stress was there as well, maybe getting to work, but my job wasn't a stressful thing that could stop, because I see a lot of pregnant women, and I used to wish that I was those kind of women that they wear high heels and they go wherever they want to go. They carry on with life as normal. um that wasn't my journey throughout my pregnancies that I had. I never had that kind of journey that I could flaunt my pregnancy around and go out and be okay. But it's not your fault that a miscarriage should happen. I read this online, that a miscarriage is mostly commonly the result of a fetus having genetic problems that cause the growth and development of that baby to stop, sometimes which is beyond the control of anybody, beyond the control of the mother, as I said, beyond the control of anything. And there are other reasons why anyone can have a miscarriage, which includes issues with your uterus or a cervical incompetence. And the second part of this, which is the cervical incompetence, that was what I had.
Hmm.
My cervix could not hold my babies. And at the beginning, they couldn't tell me that was what was wrong with me. And I would also say, I don't know if things have changed, and I'm sure medical and so many things must have changed from that time to now.
Yeah.
When you've not had a miscarriage before,
Mm.
when you've not had a miscarriage before, there's not so much, as I said at the beginning, that they can do. But once you've had a history of it, then they will try to help you on your second pregnancy or on subsequent pregnancies that you have after that. So when I had the first miscarriage and the baby was coming out, as I said, from my cervix, when I got pregnant, when I became pregnant the second time, which is another story on its own, it was a lot of things I had to go through. But by the time I was 12 weeks pregnant, I was already admitted in the hospital because I had gone through so much. I was bleeding heavily by the time I was 10 weeks pregnant. And at that time, they thought I had miscarried the babies. I was pregnant again with the twins. And eventually, when they did a scan for me, they found out that the babies were fine and they couldn't find where the blood came out from. And but they kept me in that hospital because because I when they gave me my first scan was not until like 16 weeks or thereabout. I went myself, I took myself to the hospital. I said to them, you cannot do this to me. I'm not doing no first scan at exactly 12 weeks of me getting pregnant. I want to have a scan. And the doctor must see me. And I demanded they change the date right there. And I said, by the time you hear my story, you will change this date. And truthfully, by the time they heard my story in the hospital, they changed the date. And as soon as they changed the date, and as I said, I was in hospital from like 8 or 10 weeks. I was admitted in the hospital and they kept me there. They were managing me to push me to 12 weeks. And at that 12 week, they said my doctor will be back because by then they made sure they gave me my own consultant, my gynae consultant, to be able to look after me throughout my pregnancy. And that's why I said when a history has happened, they would hopefully try to help you on the subsequent pregnancies that you had. And I would not lie to you, my consultant, she's just the best. She, as soon as she came back at 12 weeks pregnant, she booked in a cervical surgery for me, which is when you have to stitch up the cervix so that the baby will not be expelled from your body. Expelled from your body. So they did that for me when I was 13 weeks pregnant. Before they can do that, the baby must be viable. So that was why they were pushing and managing me in the hospital till I was 12 weeks pregnant. Because it's at 12 weeks that they feel that a pregnancy is viable and for them to be able to do any intervention to be able to help keep the pregnancy. And a cervical circlage was put in for me at 12 weeks to be able to hold my pregnancy.
Wow, wow, that's a long journey. Thank God it's all ended in praise. Um, Thank you, Pastor Adekunbi Ajayi, for being online, and you've written a comment. It actually ties out to my last question. But before I talk about the question, you mentioned a consultant who did her job so well that you can't forget her. Do you know her name? A shout
Of
out
course,
to what
yeah.
is her name? We'll never forget that one. What's her name? So we can have a shout out to.
Her name is Doctor. Her name is Mrs. Watson.
Mrs. Watson.
Yeah,
Mrs. Watson. Thank you
yeah.
very much, Mrs. Watson, for being there for fellow women. We are really proud of your work. Thank you very much for being there for my sister. So, our last question, which ties to what Mrs. Ajayi said. She said, "What was the role of family at this time?" And that was my last question. How can family and friends help those facing a miscarriage? Because there's so many people who need help, but because many people haven't got experience of what it is and how to help people, we just look at them helplessly. How do you think family can help? What role will the family play at this time?
The family can help by being there and not being judgmental on both sides. When a woman, and I'll say this as a woman that is married and as an African heritage woman, we all need to support every woman, even if the family side is the husband side or on your side, the wife side. Being there for them really, really matters. Is not being judgmental why they're not getting pregnant or what is happening to them or making them feel terrible that they're less of a woman or something. But it's actually supporting them. It's not just, I know I'm a Christian, but there are times when you don't want to hear those words preaching to you at that very moment when you're going through your problems. You want someone that can feel your problem for you. And I will tell you, my pastor then, through my journey, apart from my family, I'll come back to my family. There was something I remembered when I actually became pregnant again and I was going through so much problems and troubles. Every time my pastor would come to me, and there was one thing he did not come preaching to me. He was able to understand my situation and talk about my situation to make me feel good and well in myself. He didn't come preaching that God says you have to do this, God says you have to do that. And I'll say the same thing as family. My sister was so much there for me. She lives in London, I live in Kent. Almost every day when I had the miscarriage, the reason why I couldn't get in touch with my sister was because she was out of town. She was at the States when it happened. And but as soon as she got back, she was in my house. And ever since through that journey, she was coming to my house almost every day just to come and check up on me to make sure that I was fine. And the same thing she did throughout the pregnancies or throughout me having babies. She was there. She kept on coming because it's just my sister and I here in the UK. My parents live back in Nigeria. My mom, she was always calling. I During that journey, I switched off my phone because I didn't want to speak to anyone. But I had a separate phone that only my husband, my sister, and my parents had that number. And I would tell them when they can call me because I would have that switch off as well. But I didn't want anyone because sometimes when you're going through some things, you don't want to talk to anyone. And it's sometimes very difficult for people to actually say those right words to you. You need people that would say those right things to you that will make you feel like you're human and not judge you for what is going on in your life. That is who those people that you want around you. And my family was able to give that to me. My pastor and his wife, they were able to give that to me. And I thank God for all of them. And my husband, he was a solid rock too. So thank you to him too.
Yeah, I was talking without my mic. So I say, yeah, a
Okay.
shout out to Pastor. Pastor who?
His name is Pastor Stephen Balo.
Oh, Pastor Stephen Baylor, you are such a gem, an example of Christ on earth. Thank you very much for being there for our sister. That is, building a group around us. No man is an island. There are times we need people. That's something this COVID pandemic has actually taught us to, I'll say, make us realize that we really need ourselves. No matter how or where we are, we need humans around us. We need that social contact. So thank you very much for telling your story. Are there any last words? Thank you, Mrs. Pastor Dekumbi Ajayi, for also being here. And I know there are other people listening but are not making comments. I really appreciate some are maybe driving and can't make comments at the same time. So thank you very much for listening. To those who will be listening again, thank you very much. And please, let's be there for people. We need to be there, even if it's to call someone once in. I know I am sometimes guilty of this. You're so busy with work that it's hard to just call people and say, "Oh, how are you doing?" and all of that. Sometimes, yeah, we just need to be intentional about it because people are going through a lot. Thank you for sharing this with us. Are there any last words that you want to share with people before we call it a wrap?
I would just say that if there's anyone out there that has gone through a miscarriage, or you know someone that is going through that journey, be there for them, and I'm letting you know that it's not the end of the world, that you would scale through this period. As I said at the beginning, I've got 3 lovely children now. That will be your own testimony too. Don't give up, because that baby expelled from your body doesn't mean that's the end of it.
Mm,
What God has set to do in your life will surely happen, and it
yeah,
will make you rejoice and be happy at the
yes,
right time. It will
yes.
come.
Yes, true. Thank you. Thank you. That's spot on. Thank you. Thank you, Chinyere Achunin. Thank you very much for joining in. Yes, she said not only building a group around us, but a strong one. True, because there are so many people suffering even in the midst of this suffering in the midst of like the elephant. They say the elephant in the corner, the elephant in that you could be in a group and still be not, still not be feeling that group. So yeah, building a strong group, a group where you can call on to say, oh, this is what I'm facing, and people will be there for you. So yes, thank you very much for making that point. Thank you. And yes, she says, thanks for sharing your story. Thank you. With everyone on this platform listening and will listen to this, we really appreciate you. You have inspired somebody, you have encouraged somebody, and that is why we do this. Thank you very much.
Come.
Okay. So,
Thank you.
yes, and I wish you a lovely day as you carry on enjoying your day. Thank you very much, Mrs. Edun.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So yes, we've heard it all. We've heard it all from yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Adekunbi Ajayi also says thank you very much for sharing your story. These are stories we need to listen to appreciate what people go through sometimes, in life. Thank you very much for being here, for sharing the video, for commenting. May the Lord bless you. And I know that our sister, the Lord has given her testimony, a reason to be thankful at last. May your own story turn into a testimony as well in the name of Jesus. Thank you very much. And we soak her story in the blood of Jesus. We thank God because it shall be to inspire, to increase, and she'll have many more reasons to sing of the goodness of God in the land of the living. Thank you very much for being here. And this is where we say bye bye.